Okay, we're going to have a look at how we make the apertures on our side panels, and I'm using a faux leather for my side panel, so you can see that how they work in faux leather as well. So I'm using a non-woven interfacing. I've cut my panel the size that it tells me to in the pattern. I've made a mark that is 3/4 of an inch away from the top edge, and I've written a little T on the top there so that I know that that's my top edge. I've then made a mark 1 inch from the side, and then 1/4 inch further in. Same on the other side, 1 inch from the side, 1/4 inch further in, and a further line that's 7/8 of an inch from that top 3/4 inch line I've created, which gives me two little rectangular apertures that are 1/4 inch wide by 7/8 of an inch high. And that's exactly the same measurements as we had on our original facing panels for the front and back. So I've taken my side panel, and on the right side I've made a mark that is 2 inches from the top edge of my panel, and I'm just going to take my facing panel and I'm going to lay the top edge of my facing panel against that 2 inch mark. I'm just going to pop a clip in one side. I'm going to do the same with the other side. The facing panel actually comes right off the side, and that's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be too big, but just so it's not flapping about or I don't catch it, I will just pop a clip in on the other side as well. Now there's a kind of a lump there. Don't worry about that. I'm just going to move that one so I need one at a time. And we're going to follow pretty much the same process, but we've got a much bigger facing panel. So I'm going to do the left hand side first. So I'm just going to smooth that out so that I know that it's nice and flat. And I'm going to use exactly the same technique as I did before, in so much as I'm just going to reduce my stitch down a little bit. And I'm going to let the pedals disappear under my desk. I'm just going to stitch down the side of the rectangles. So I'm dropping my needle in right at the corner. Back stitch to secure my threads. Now I'm not going quite as small with my stitching on here because this is faux leather, and if I do very tiny stitches it will perforate, so you do kind of have to alter your stitch length according to your fabrics used. Now I've made this is the first one I've made in just plain cotton. I've made it in faux leather, and I've used canvas, and I've used a heavy grade upholstery velvet. So I know it can be made on all of those. All of them have been made on a domestic machine, either this one or my Juki, which is also a domestic. So it's entirely achievable on a domestic machine. So I've done those two lines on that side. And what I'm going to do is then I'm just going to pull the facing over, making sure that that top edge stays on that 2 inch line. And now we have got a proper lump in the middle. And I'm going to stitch the other two lines going down. Back stitching a couple of stitches. At the beginning and end of both of those lines. I'm just going to get rid of any threads, and I can take off my clips now because that's nice and secure. So you can see there that that's attached now, but the center of that facing panel is kind of, it's made a little hump. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut more or less centrally, doesn't have to be measured, so that I've now got two pieces of facing. And you're going to use the exact same process as we've already used to create these apertures. Now if you're using faux leather and you really are using something very, very thick and you really think that you cannot do this, you could just cut the apertures and leave them raw edge. I don't think it gives us much of a professional finish, but it's possible to do. Make sure that you put your apertures 2 3/4 inches from the top edge though. You must make sure that the apertures are level at 2 3/4 inches. So I'm just going to cut through, kind of hoping my blade doesn't fall out this time. Just cutting through the centre to create that cross that will allow us to be able to push this facing to the rear of our side panels. And you're going to do the same thing on both side panels. So this, I'm only going to show you one. You don't need to see me do it twice. Pretty sure you can figure this one out. So there again, we've got our facing panel. We've stitched down the sides, but not along the short top and bottom. And we've cut that cross in the middle, making sure that we're as close as we can be to the stitching, but not cutting through the stitching. And we're going to do the same thing again. I just like to kind of finger press the sides of the facing panel. Use my finger now. You could use, I think, this, which is a bone. It's called a bone, I think, a pressing bone. You can use that to just press the sides if you really want to. Obviously, you can't press this because it's faux leather, so you can't get your iron on it. Certainly not on the front anyway. So I'm just pushing that facing panel through to the reverse. And what you should end up with is it will look a bit bouncy because the faux leather will kind of try and resist the fact that you're bending it. What you need to do is either use a little bit of the masking tape to hold the facing panel behind, or, as I said before, you can use your finger underneath on the side of the facing panel to kind of pull it out as you stitch, and I'll show you that in just a second. So we've got that on the reverse. Lovely jubbly, everything's hunky-dory. Right, I'm going to start with this one, and obviously I can't press this because this is faux leather, so I'm just going to kind of pull the facing from behind until I've got what looks like a fairly rectangular aperture. I'm going to give myself some long threads to start and finish, because again I'm going to bury my threads. And I'm just going to lift up that panel and put my finger underneath and hold on to the side of that facing panel. Just increase my stitch length a wee bit. And again, I've still got my finger underneath there. I'm leaving long threads at the beginning and the end, and I'm just going to very carefully stitch around that aperture. As I come towards the bottom, I move my finger along, so I'm still pulling the facing panel out. Be careful you don't pull too hard, otherwise you'll make your aperture an oval, and that's not what we want. I come to the bottom, I pivot, and again I put my finger underneath and just on the facing panel to hold it tight. Pivot, again lift it up, put my finger on that facing panel to kind of hold it in place as I stitch. Raising my foot, pulling my work out, leaving nice long threads. Taking the 2 threads from the front of my work, using a self-threading needle, and I always do 2 threads at the same time, through the last hole, so that I've got no obvious stop and start to my stitching. For many of you who've been with me for a while and have done a lot of my patterns, you'll know we do a lot of tying off in some of them. You'll be delighted to know, mercifully, there isn't that much tying off in this, so it's not quite as laborious as some are. And there we go, we have a perfect rectangular aperture. If I put something light behind it, you can see. And we're going to continue, we're going to do the same with this one, and on the second side panel we're going to do exactly the same, on the top of the side panel. So I'm going to leave you while I get on with those, and I'll come back with the next bit.